great to have you back on the show, and we'll rehash what you've been doing for the last couple months. We'll hear all about Dangerous. We have an exclusive excerpt that's going to be the lead story at Breitbart News. As soon as I settle on my headline, I'm playing with about 6 or 7 at the moment. But I woke up this morning and I thought of your chapter, which we have an exclusive excerpt at Breitbart, which is the Islam chapter, Why Muslims Hate Me, which is a humorous, but it's a very substantial chapter. And you really go into detail about the religion of peace. And I couldn't help think about my favorite foil on the show and a Breitbart, which is the establishment press, which dedicated more time and research to debunk and to take out and to attack a Reddit user named Han A-hole Solo over the weekend than they spent on many a terrorist attack. They were much more concerned with Reddit users who are creating entertaining memes based off of the WWE than they are against the actual villains on this planet. And I wanted you just to start from there today.
Well, it's not until you're part of one of these stories that you realize just how ludicrous the press's priorities are. And, remember that this gift thing, for listeners who don't know or are still trying to wrap their head around what this thing on the internet was, it's basically a cartoon. I mean, it's a cartoon of a fake fight that Donald Trump was involved in on TV. And, CNN is throwing its hands up in the air, clutching its pearls, pretending that this represents some kind of credible threat to journalist safety, and then threatening the private citizen who made it. This stuff beggars belief. Well, I had an example just this week, but closer to home, which is I've sold, I hate to brag, as you know, but I'll just tell you for the purposes of the story, we sold 100,000 copies of my book within the first 12 hours of it being on sale, including the pre-sales. And we did it without a single mainstream interview. This is probably the most anticipated book of 2017. It's probably almost certain to be the fastest selling book of the year, if not of the decade. We're going to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. It's a hugely culturally significant book, and we've done it without a single interview in the mainstream media, without a single piece of coverage on broadcast TV. And because of what they were concerned with yesterday, rather than charting the return of an important cultural figure with a massive book that half of America is going to be reading. Instead, what they were preoccupied with was a cartoon that they could use to bash the president with. It's absolutely remarkable. And I started working at Breitbart in the first place because I sort of heard about this Andrew Breitbart guy, and I heard about, the media are the real bad guys. And I'm like, really? And the more I've discovered, the more time I've spent in America, the more I've realized that these guys have got to go. If Americans, as Breitbart would have put it, want their voices to be heard. And as I would put it, if people actually want to know the slightest thing about what's really happening in their own country, the mainstream media has got to go or be radically reformed. Now, the interesting thing about this one is there seems to be blood in the water about this particular cartoon that CNN has gone off on one about. And it reminds me of the controversy that put me on the map and kickstarted my career when I was working for you a few years ago, and that's the Gamergate controversy. It's a very complicated thing, but basically, video games journalists were always considered with sort of contempt and scorn by users, by video game players, I mean. But people didn't really sort of rise up against them in any kind of organized fashion until one sort of flashpoint, which doesn't need to detain us right now. And suddenly the games press became the object of widespread research, ridicule, and scorn, and they've never recovered from that. It permanently damaged the media's ability to report on video games at all. I don't know whether this is an extinction-level event for national journalists in America, but I'm getting some of the same initial warning signs for them that I got at the beginning of Gamergate. I can sense that people are genuinely horrified and sick of it now. And it's going at some point in the next couple of years, maybe in the next couple of months, there's going to be a reckoning. And something like this is what's going to set it off.
That's Milo making triumphant return back to Breitbart News Daily. And I'll tell you, Milo, this is perfect timing for your book, Dangerous, #1 on the Amazon charts right now and easy to buy. Just go to the front page of Breitbart.com. We've got what's known as our Action Center all set up. A great, beautiful ad that is worthy of Milo with his signature magenta. And happy to have you back on the show. We have a lot to get to today, but it is a very important moment moment for you, because what you've done with this book, the fact that you've been able to get it to number one, not once, not twice, but now 3 separate times on Amazon, despite Simon & Schuster trying to cut off your book deal, despite the fact that no quote unquote reputable publishing house wanting to take on the task of standing up to the social justice warrior bullies who are out there. And even folks like Fox News. I haven't caught you on Fox. Have you been on Fox yet to promote the book?
Absolutely not. And it gives you an indication, doesn't it, of how far out of touch the media is. If we didn't know that already from the last election, it isn't just politics, it's culture too. They don't know what America's reading. They don't know what shows America is watching. They don't know. They just don't understand the country they report on. And, you know, the reason I thrived at Breitbart, I'm so happy to work for you, was that Breitbart seems to be one of the very few places that understand huge chunks of the country in a way that ABC, NBC, and the other networks just don't. They don't get it. And even, I'm sorry to say, Fox, but I know my readership skews a little younger than the average age
Sure.
Fox viewer, which is sort of 96 or 102 or something. And so I understand that I might not be top of the billing for
roughly the age of Bernie Sanders' children, like in the mid 90s to early.
An age to which most of us will never get. An age most of us will never reach. But it's so weird. You look out on what is the press publishing today, and I feel sorry for people at home because they're angry and they don't really know just how angry to be. But you and I, as professional journalists, actually do know what's happening out there in the country, and we have the choice when we sit down on our computer in the morning what to cover and what not to cover. And your job at Breitbart is basically, picking the stuff that other people don't touch for their own bad reasons and trying to highlight it. And it's just amazing to me. And I just wish everybody knew what we knew. I wish everybody at home had access to the same level of information, because I think there'd be open revolt at the fourth estate.
Well, it's quite heartening to see the book succeed already, and people haven't even got a chance to read it. I have. It's essential reading for a variety of reasons, but the main thing is that if you are a social justice warrior who's recently been enlightened, who maybe was turned off by campus totalitarianism, and you're just seeing that this populist, nationalist, conservative, libertarian movement that's spreading throughout the Western world might actually appeal to you, this is a crash course, and this is something that will catch you up on really the last year or two of development in this really exciting area of thought where Milo has been a thought leader. So thrilled to have him back on the show. That's right, the most fabulous supervillain on the internet, with me for the full hour. Give us a call at 866-95-PATRIOT. Love to hear your questions about the new book, Dangerous, out now. Pick it up at the front page at Breitbart.com or Amazon or wherever you like. But I'll tell you, Milo, one place you can't pick it up unless you get really lucky is Barnes & Noble. And I'll tell you that I had a close family member go to the Barnes & Noble, the biggest bookseller, at least in terms of a brick and mortar store in the United States. They went to the Grove location, which is right in the heart of Hollywood, across from CBS Studios. And it is a huge multi-level, 3-level bookstore, which is one of the few bookstores where I actually enjoy going every once in a while, or I did. And when they asked for the book Dangerous, out now, that not only did they say they're not carrying it, they triumphantly announced to my friend that they proudly will not be carrying it. And it's still number one. So you have the biggest bookseller spurning their own audience, spurning their own potential customers. And they are proud that they are costing themselves money and alienating a massive audience. Am I taking crazy pills, or is this the United States of America?
No, this is the left in action, and they don't know what's in the book. They haven't read the book, and they don't want to read the book. All they know is that this is an effective conservative, so it has to be destroyed. And it just makes me think, I hope to sell hundreds and hundreds of thousands of copies of this book. Maybe I could sell 500,000. Maybe in my wildest dreams, I think about selling 1 million copies, having every American somehow get their hands on a copy of this book, every single American reading this book. And then it occurs to me, if the entire media and publishing industries were behind it, rather than implacably opposed to it, rather than dedicated to its destruction, How many copies could I have sold? 10 million? You know, and you go into these books, and so many people have written to me saying they've gone into Barnes & Noble and just been point blank refused. It's the same thing. They're not learning. The left isn't learning. As when Hillary called half the country a basket of deplorables because they quite like Donald Trump. The same thing's happening. Hundreds of thousands of people want to read this book. But booksellers are basically turning around and calling them all racist and sexist because they want to, you know, look at some different ideas or consider things from a conservative or a libertarian point of view. They're just being utterly written off. Obviously, the story you mentioned, I think, is in or around Hollywood, so it's at the epicenter of crazy. But what's really saddening about it is that they haven't even read the book. These are people who profess. These are people who profess to be literary tastemakers, people who will tell you what you can and cannot order in a store, people who sit surrounded by great works of literature all day, every day, people who read hundreds of thousands of words a year, and they will never open the cover of this book, but they're perfectly happy condemning it regardless. It's exactly what happened to the last election. The left just doesn't learn.
Well, what's interesting here, Milo, and I've read the book, and it's witty and it's irreverent and it's highly enjoyable to read, and it is a page turner, which not every book is, not every important book is. This one happens to be one, but that's almost not even the point at this point. It's almost like what happened with you at UC Berkeley, which I don't know if you remember this. You didn't end up actually speaking there. It was still one of the most significant political moments in the last 20 years in American life. Just your attempt to speak at UC Berkeley, which failed. The fact that this book is #1 on Amazon for the third time, almost certainly to go to #1 on the New York Times, unless there's some sort of hijinks that take place.
We'll see what they get up to. We'll see where they get up to, because they have a very, the New York Times is they have these purposefully opaque methods, which basically mean, if Trevor Noah releases a book, but it doesn't sell, we'll give him position #2 anyway. If a conservative releases a book, we're going to force them to shift so many copies. Yeah. They're going to have to be breaking their back on book tours, getting every little last sale they possibly can, and then we'll put them at #7.
Well, and we will track that, and I have high hopes that they will be honest and they will make this the #1 book, because it clearly is the #1 book for a million reasons. But it's just a fascinating thing to watch publishers, to watch even conservative media like Fox News, and to watch booksellers run away from this book that they have not read. The book is not Milo ratcheted up to 11. There's lots of witty jokes, there's lots of offensive stuff in it, but this is one that really everyone should read. And I want you to speak to that you dialed in your message so that this one is one that is really almost all audiences should be able to read this one and enjoy it.
Well, that was my intention. I mean, there are some cuss words in there. There are some jokes. There's some provocative and offensive language. And if you don't like that kind of thing, you're on the wrong side of history. Get over yourself and read it anyway. But I kind of made a joke out of it with my hardcore fans. I said I've got to apologize in advance, guys, because if you're expecting a book full of fat jokes, you're not going to get it. And there are some fat jokes, probably more fat jokes than any other book published this decade. Yeah. But Dangerous is at my.
That's one of the selling points on the book jacket, and you guys actually that is not a joke. It actually is one of the selling points on the back cover.
No, it's true. I mean, I take pride in this, but it is also me at my most substantial and serious. And I think one of the things that establishment Republicans and the left said about me during the college tour, because I like to dress up in funny outfits and create these spectacles, was that I was a provocateur with no substance. Well, this book is my attempt to lay those criticisms to rest forever, because it's kind of a whistle-stop tour through all of the different elements of American public life that represent a threat to free speech. Islam, feminism, Black Lives Matter, education, establishment Republicans, the left in general, the media. And it's my experience of encountering all of those different forces in American public life, how bad they are, and how to spot them. And then there are some tips towards the end of the book about how to beat them, like I have too. So it's a how-to guide, it's a manual, it's a manifesto. I like to think that the end of it is very encouraging and uplifting. And as I say, it's me at my most substantial and serious. And if any of these people had read the book, they'd be working even harder to boycott it, because they'd realize how dangerous it is.
And I think one of the reasons, Milo, why you and I get along so well is because you're one of the true iconoclasts out there, and everyone is trying to narrowly label themselves and fit into one group or another. But you've been attacked and sometimes praised by virtually every group. It's not just the left. It's certainly the establishment, but even the establishment conservatives and even the fringier parts of the alt-right, they all have some beef with you. So talk to us a little bit about the process of the book and who are the people who have been supportive. I assume that list is very short. And more interestingly, who are the people who have tried to stand in the way and have so far failed miserably?
Well, the key to great radio interviewing, as you clearly know, Alex, is to tee up a question whose answer inevitably is going to result in a compliment for yourself. So you asked me a question, who has been there for me, who has supported me, who has been a defender of me. Well, the number one answer to that question is, of course, you during my time at Breitbart. That you, of course, saw earlier on, I think, than anybody else what the potential of what we were doing, of what I was doing was. So thank you for that. I think more interesting is the list of people who didn't help, though, and what I discovered through my college tour and my journalism for Breitbart, and now what I'm doing now with the book and all the rest of it, was that all of the worst people in the world couldn't stand me. And it was feminist activists engaging in conspiracy theories and lies. It was Black Lives Matter activists lying about law enforcement. It was National Review types, preaching to 75-year-olds instead of actually getting out there and inspiring young conservatives to go do something. All of the most self-regarding, odious, elitist, and and irritating people in America seem to sort of declare themselves against me before I'd even addressed them or spoken about them. And this told me something. And it was that to be honest with you, a broadcast journalist on CNN and an editor at National Review and a member of, the Never Trump faction of the Republican Party and feminist activists on campus, university professors, Hollywood producers, all these people have more in common with each other than they do with the rest of us, because they're all part of the same kind of in-group. The Breitbart readership, the Trump presidency, and Milo fans represent a grave threat to. So it was interesting to me. People kind of declared war on me that I'd never even heard of.
Yes,
that's how far gone American public life is. The establishment has such closed ranks and moves in such synchronicity. The people I'd never heard of were tweeting mean things about me during my college tour, and I looked them up, and they were sort of nominal Republicans. They either found me distasteful or too crass or too rude or whatever. And then when I actually tried to get something done, like get a book published, well, the entire literary establishment effectively slammed their doors in my face, with the exception temporarily of Simon & Schuster, who then pulled the book deal anyway. And I believe that represented a breach of contract, and I believe that it was done for political reasons, which is why
you're suing them.
I am, which is why, in addition to the success of the book in its own right, I'm also not just suing them, but I'm going to hold a free speech rally outside their offices this week in New York. So you can find out information about that on my Facebook page. And I believe that Breitbart has written this up too. We have a book party this week. And then on Friday in the morning in New York City, we're going to hold a free speech rally outside Simon & Schuster's offices. And my purpose in doing this isn't, they're a private company. They can, publish whoever they want. But my purpose in doing this is draw attention to the double standards that exist for conservatives, that existed for me. And I want to, send a message to other publishers that they can't go on ignoring half the country forever. Because it isn't just publishers. It's also TV stations. It's journalism. It's the entire establishment in America who will slavishly and endlessly and exhaustingly cover talentless people that nobody wants to hear from, like Lena Dunham and Amy Schumer. But when a book they don't like comes to, number one, and thank you for saying it was 3 times. It's been 3 times, and this printing is actually went to number 1 twice before with Simon & Schuster. It's been in and out of the number 1 spot so many times. This is a book that half of America can't wait to get their hands on. And look at the reviews. The reviews are almost uniform.
Yeah, it's a 5-star reviews right now, and the trolls really are trying to get in.
Lovely to read.
Yeah, and
the 1-star reviews are actually from obviously from people who like me. There are people, if you actually look at the 1-star reviews on Amazon, it's people saying, let me be the first special snowflake to say this bigoted, hateful book. And they're joking. They're joking. They're people playing with me who like me. It's so funny. Like, the only bad reviews I get are mock bad reviews from fans. And people just really, really like me, and they want to read this book, and the media won't cover it. As I said earlier in the interview, I don't like to sing my praises too much. He lied, but it is such a colossal, it's such a huge endeavor for any conservative today, particularly one that doesn't have a lot of sales under their belt or a lot of, or many years in this country. I came here from the UK, as a visitor, really, and I'm still just a visitor, but I decided to write a book about the country because I was so flabbergasted that the home of the First Amendment was somewhere where speech was so restricted, and people were being so heavily regulated by the institutions of elite culture. I wrote a book about it, but I couldn't imagine how difficult it was to get a book off the ground as a conservative in this country without actually going through the process. The media doesn't want to talk to you. Publishers don't want to publish you. Nobody wants to help. Nobody will be interviewed. It's an absolutely remarkable thing to experience. It's incredible to go through. And, I would encourage your listeners to support conservative authors who do make a success of it in the public square, because it is not easy getting a bestseller out there in the face of, the tactics from the left, which are either ignore it till it goes away, tell people it's boring, all the different strategies.
Let's be crystal clear here, Milo. Let's be crystal clear here. This is a triumph of the anti-establishment that this book is once again number one, because the corporate media didn't want to publish the book. The same corporate media that gave Lena Dunham $3 million advance to sell a book. This has been number one. You can't get a publisher. You self-publish it. You start your own label, Dangerous Books, and you publish it, and it goes to number one right away. It's just out today. 100,000 copies already sold. In the meantime, we are watching CNN literally hunt down jokesters online, hunt them down, track them down, try to expose them, try to humiliate them, try to intimidate them into silence. And this is what we're doing. We're standing up now. We're saying we don't need the corporate media. We don't need Simon & Schuster. We don't need CNN. We will do it ourselves, and we will do it better and with more integrity.
I couldn't have asked for a better news story. I'm wondering if somebody at CNN has my back. Them doing this today, which is kind of the whole point of the entire last half of the book. The lack of priorities it shows. But even more interestingly, and this is the thing I love most about the story, is the tone of that CNN report. I don't know how closely you read the original story they put out, but it was, it was all about how horrible this behavior was, and his reputed behavior. And we reserve the right to he's apologized, so we're not going to give his name because he's given us a groveling apology, promised never to do it again. But we reserve the right to give his name out should that situation change. The schoolmarmishness of it, how patronizing and imperious it was, how absolutely disgusting. The tone of the language from a journalist to their supposed, the readers, the people they work for. As a journalist, you don't work for your boss. Your boss, gets to tell you what stories you can write sometimes and tell you when you've missed a full stop. But you write for your readers. You serve your readers. Journalists are supposed to be performing a civic function. And the way that CNN talks about ordinary Americans, the tone it uses is staggering. It's incredible. They have the same level of contempt for the public that Hillary Clinton did. And look what happened to her. So that was the most amazing thing to me about this whole story. And that's, in a way, that one of the big themes of the whole book. So I couldn't really have asked for very much more of a nice kind of second component to my launch strategy that I never anticipated. But, the media keeps proving me right and keeps proving us all right. All of those of us who, are suspicious of their tactics, of their style, of their principles, they keep proving us right. They keep not learning their lesson. And if you go find, I think it's called Andrew Kaczynski, is it? The journalist at CNN. Go hunt that down online. Read the way they talk about you. Because it could have been you. It could have been any of us.
Yes, it could have.
Booker.
Absolutely. This is a 21-year-old Alex Marlow. That's exactly who they're going after right now.
Somebody posting a cartoon. I mean, you remember Gorka, R.I.P., which ruined the life of a woman called Justine Sacco because she tweeted a fairly crappy AIDS joke. before she got on a plane to Africa. By the time she got off the plane, this is pre-Wi-Fi days, by the time she got off the plane, her life had been destroyed, her hotel reservation had been cancelled, she'd lost her job because she tweeted a bad joke. Well, now the media, you should be on notice, if you're an ordinary American sitting at home, because now the media wants to do it to you too. And it's not media watching, niche websites like Gawker. It's CNN on the lookout to destroy private citizens who tell the wrong jokes. This is in a country, this is in the land of the First Amendment. I cannot imagine anything more horrifying, more terrifying, more un-American than people having their lives ruined because they have the wrong opinion or told the wrong joke. And that's now the country that you guys live in. Right. That is now America. This book is my clarion call to you to resist it with everything, with every possible strategy.
My guest is Milo, the most fabulous supervillain on the internet. His new book, Dangerous, #1 on Amazon right now. It is out, so you can get it. Go ahead to Breitbart.com or to Amazon and pick it up. And Milo, before we get to the phones, and the phones are completely full with people wanting to talk to you, and we'll bring some of them on. But one thing, it does go beyond the media, and this is something that Breitbart knows as well as just about anyone other than you, which is a lot of what's going on here is not just attacks from the left, but also attacks from the right, that the right thinks that you don't have some sort of orthodoxy, that you can't fit neatly into their version of a conservative, and thus you must be either suppressed or attacked. And I'll tell you, this is not just the establishment Republicans. Even the anti-establishment Republicans are very quick to tell people like me at Breitbart when I'm not doing something that they don't find satisfying, and how they shun us. So how come the right doesn't understand that if we don't actually become a big tent, we're going to lose so many of the gains we've made in the last couple of years?
I think it's a question of psychology. I think most human beings have naturally censorious instincts. I think most of us have the instinctive response to speech that we don't like, that person should shut up, or how do I shut them up? There are only a few of us who stop that instinct and who kick in our higher brain functions and who say, you know what, I can't stand what that guy has to say, but he's got to be allowed to do it. And that's that's the realization from which we get the famous Voltaire quote. And freedom, you see, and a respect for freedom of expression and freedom of speech really exists in a small population, a small percentage of the population at any one time. Now, it seems to be exclusively confined to Republicans and libertarians in America at the moment. But we all know there are some good liberals, who do believe in this stuff and who are concerned about the effects of clamping down on free speech by the progressive left. I mean, think about Bill Maher and people who have come over from the other side, like Dave Rubin, the online chat show host. There are some good liberals out there. I mean, they're wrong about everything else, but they're right about this.
Right. And this is the chapter we're going to be highlighting at Breitbart, which is your chapter on Islam, or excerpts of it. People who are across the board liberal, aside from some atheists who roundly condemn radical Islam and certainly certain parts of regular mainstream Islam, they're entirely rejected by the liberal establishment because of this. And talk about this and talk about that chapter.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, the single greatest threat to freedom of expression in America today, I think, is probably Silicon Valley. It's probably the tech industry, because, Google and Twitter and all the rest of it, because they stop you even knowing that something has been censored. You won't even know if Google removes something from the search engine results. There's no way for you to know that it isn't there. And when you search for something yourself and click a result, psychologists say that you're much more likely to believe what you read after a search because you're the one who went out and sought the information, so you kind of hold it in higher regard. But the greatest threat to security, the greatest threat to the Western way of life, if you like, threat to freedom, democracy, capitalism, property rights, all the stuff that makes America awesome, the greatest threat to all of those things is Islam. And that's the thing that somehow the progressive left have wandered into defending with the most vigor, is an orthodoxy that hates women, oppresses gays, hates free speech. It's the most authoritarian, prescriptive, theocratic belief system imaginable. It is horrible. Everywhere it exists, people are miserable. It is the perfect example of how not to organize society, how to make people desperately miserable and unhappy. And it is the antithesis of the American way of freedom and fun and free expression, capitalism, all the rest of it. And it is, of course, the thing that the left, which hates America, which hates, capitalism, which hates freedom, which hates free speech, it is, of course, the thing that the left jumps to defend. So, although I think that conservatives should be focusing a lot on what technology companies are doing, the people who make their phones, the people who make their search engines, the people who make their social networks, of course, the biggest geopolitical threat, the biggest threat to the Western way of life is Islam. And that is, of course, why the left defends it with such vigor and overlooks all of its misdeeds. So the chapter, I'm thinking very carefully, and I think I'm going to do this. I think my next book is going to be about Islam more generally. But the chapter that you're running an excerpt from is specifically about how the media refuses to report on facts about Islam because effectively they sort of agree with Islam's critique of the West. So, it's just so shocking and so obvious. As soon as you do the slightest bit of reading in this subject, you have feminists who complain about the patriarchy, about the terrible treatment of women, about expectations on their behavior and all the rest of it. And at the same time, the same people on Twitter, the same people in their reporting, the same people in public life, celebrities and all the rest of it, are turning a blind eye to and making excuses for Islam. And it's probably the most obvious example of the left not practicing what it preaches. It's the most glaring and also the most horrifying example of the left's doublethink and of the left's failure to be consistent on key issues of freedom of women and gay rights and all the rest of it. It's the most glaring example that the left doesn't have your best interests at heart, and instead really is just motivated by destroying the right wing, by destroying all the things that make America wonderful.
All right, Milo, let's let her rip on the phone lines, and we'll start with Carolyn on line 5. Carolyn, you're talking to Milo and Alex about Milo's book, Dangerous. Good morning. What's going on? Can we get to Carolyn, if you guys don't mind? Is call screener available? Is the button sticky? I'm interrupting my flow here. All right, let's take a break. And then when we come back, we'll talk to Carolyn. Okay, Carolyn is here, so we'll not take a break. Okay, sloppy stuff, but we will move forward nonetheless. Carolyn, good morning. You're on the show. What's up?
Good morning, Alex. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I'd like to say to Milo, thanks for opening my eyes. I first heard about you when I was really new to the whole sort of right-wing thing because I was brought up in Portland, Oregon, and brought up liberal.
I'm so sorry.
I know, it's horrible. Yeah, but
it's almost as bad as
you. Thanks to you, my family now thinks I'm a racist, but that's okay.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Collateral damage.
Just kidding. I actually started, I saw you on, everybody was like, who's Milo? Where's Milo? Or something like that. And that's when I sort of got interested in you. And because they were saying, how horrible you were. And I listened to you and I was like, oh, wow, actually, he's really great. And I just like to thank Breitbart because I used to be, like I said, a liberal, and I listened to Stephen K. Bannon, and he really opened my eyes. And I can't wait to order your book because I've ordered it now 6 times, and hopefully this time I'll get it.
Carolyn, what a great point. See, and a lot of people have had this issue. Thanks for the praise for Milo. And Milo, don't you think people should sponsor a book, give an extra copy to a liberal in their life?
I bought 2. I did buy 2, one for me and one for my daughter.
Good, Carolyn. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for doing so. Thank you for the nice words. I don't know about this, Alex. I sort of feel guilty because it keeps selling out so quickly. I don't know whether we should be telling people to buy 2 or whether that is going to rob other people of getting the book as quickly as they'd like, because we're sort of, every day I get an email from my CEO saying we got to print another 100,000. I'm like, okay, all right, get the credit card out. So I don't know what the right advice is. Whether I should be telling people to buy as many as they can, in which case it just sells out all over again for another 12 hours or whatever. Basically, if you put an order in with Amazon, I think they'll get it to you as soon as they can. We're shipping them, I think, another 50,000 or something now. So, sure, of course you should, because this is a book I think that all of America should read. And even if I hadn't written it, I think I'd probably be saying the same thing, because I conceived it as a sort of whistle-stop tour through all of the worst people and concepts in America. And the red thread running through all of it is you should be able to say, do, and be whatever you want. And for some reason, somehow, over the last 15 years, that's become a conservative position. very, very remarkable state of affairs for America to be in, but it's true nonetheless. And yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I might come up with some sort of competition. So keep an eye out on my Instagram, on my Facebook, and whatnot. If you follow stuff like that, I might come up with some sort of competition with a person who can award the book to the most deserving target. Perhaps I'll suggest to people they might like to gift it in person to Nancy Pelosi or to Debbie Wasserman Schultz or even to dear Hillary Clinton or something.
Yes,
if you get yourself on camera giving a copy of Dangerous to somebody like that. Lena Dunham, perhaps. Now that Vice reporter, Michael Tracy, got fired for posting Lena Dunham's address. It's
if anyone has her address, she's going to get 1,000 copies. I know it. Before we go back to Milo, let's go to the phones. People calling in with questions for Milo. How about Alan in North Carolina, line 1? Alan, what have you got to say?
Hey, guys. Pleasure to talk to you. And, I started following both of you guys last year during the primaries. Because I was really frustrated with the news and them telling me what they thought I should do or what they thought I should believe. And it kind of ties into the comment and the question that I have for you. But Milo, a pleasure to talk to you. And I wish I could remember what it was, but you shared something on Facebook a few weeks ago, and I reshared it. My aunt, who I knew was left-leaning, but I didn't really know how left she was until Trump got elected. She sent something snarky back to me saying that she said, well, Milo's not exactly a reputable source. And I responded to her and I said, if your reference is the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN, I said, he's never had to retract anything. So the question I've got for you is, where is all of this headed? Where is this headed with the establishment and the media? They obviously aren't getting their way because they can't control what people are doing or what people are thinking. So my question is where are we headed in the next 5 or 10 years?
Milo, back to you. Can we pot in Milo?
Yeah, go ahead. For the nice words. I think it's fairly obvious where we're headed with this. People have a limited amount of patience for media, and they quite enjoy it. And, you've seen over the last 2 years, conservatives get involved in some of the same kind of activism and lobbying and boycotting that the left has been doing for 30 years. And it's been fun to enjoy. And, I'm not going to lie, I did quite enjoy the sight of people leaping on stage at that Caesar play, where they dress Caesar up as Trump and he gets stabbed and all the rest of it. But it's not my preferred vision for the future, because I don't think we should be going down the same road the left has done for 30 years, because it makes us no better than them. What I prefer for conservatives to do is to fall back on the only thing that we know organizes society well, which is the free market, and vote with your feet. Stop hate watching CNN, stop watching it altogether, and stop visiting its website. The only basis for comparison I really have for this is the Gamergate, the video game controversy I reported on perhaps 2 years ago now for Breitbart. And what eventually happened after this initial outpouring of fury at the media is people just stopped visiting sites that weren't doing their jobs properly. Journalists who basically given up on their responsibility to report the news, to hold truth to power, and to be a functioning and useful and valuable part of the infrastructure of public life, and had instead dedicated themselves merely to saying racist, sexist, racist, homophobe for a living, people just stopped going to those sites, and they became financially unviable. They just became non-starter businesses. And it's my hope that conservatives, rather than throwing their toys out the stroller and organizing these mass, social media outrage mobs like the left has done, it's my hope that conservatives will do something even more effective and devastating, and that is use the free market, use your power as a consumer, and just stop patronizing, stop frequenting, stop visiting sites that are actively trying to destroy the things that make this country fantastic. So stop watching MSNBC, even if you just watch it in the morning to annoy yourself to get out of bed. So, stop watching NBC, ABC, stop watching Fox, stop watching all of the stations that fail to meet your standards, and go and seek out people who do meet your standards. Go and seek out people who, operate with integrity, who don't kowtow to the establishment. I mean, when I was very lucky because I was writing for Breitbart at a time that site was emerging as the premier news source for people, sort of anti-establishment libertarian and conservative readers. And I saw the site go from, a small conservative player in, jostling in the marketplace to, I think, probably the most influential news source on the planet, given that Breitbart was so instrumental in getting Trump elected. And it taught me the power of eyeballs and footfall. And when readers vote with their feet, it becomes unarguable. That's what happened with Breitbart in the last election. With the
and that's what's happening, Milo, with Dangerous.
That's what's happening with the book. Exactly.
Yeah, which is #1 on Amazon. And one thing that's a bummer is that sometimes when you do a powerful interview like this, I get to watch the book sail up Amazon in real time, which is really fun for me. I don't get to do that now because it's already at the top. So I'm sure.
There are.
So you've deprived me of that. We only have a couple minutes left. All the latest Dangerous content you can check out on all of Milo's social media pages, which you can see at the top of Breitbart right now. And we are putting up an exclusive excerpt on his Islam chapter. Also, I can't wait. We'll have you back on when the audiobook comes out. I can't wait to hear. I heard it's a performance. It's not just literally you reading the book. It's a totally different product. So we'll have to talk to you more about that. But in the 2 minutes we have left in the show, talk to us about what's in store for Milo and for Milo fans for the next year.
Well, this week, if you happen to be anywhere close to New York, or even if you don't, you feel like hopping on a Greyhound or something, on Thursday night, it's the book launch party, which is going to be open to the public. We've had threats from Antifa, threats from the progressive left, all kinds of idiots online saying they're going to disrupt proceedings. They're not. We're working with NYPD and law enforcement to make sure we have a fantastic, fun, safe party. So that's Thursday night. Friday, we're having a free speech rally outside Simon & Schuster's headquarters. Then I'm going to be releasing the audiobook, which as you say, it is a performance. It's not often that I manage to put a mobile phone down for more than 30 or 40 minutes, but I've done it for sort of 6-hour stretches recording this book.
Wow.
So I hope you guys like it. I know, really. I unplugged myself. I hope you guys like it. Later in the year, when I've finished marketing the book, I finished with the book tour, we're going to have some signings, by the way, in New York, some signings in LA, a party in San Francisco. So keep an eye out on Facebook and all of the usual places for news about those things. We are going later in the year to return me to where I started, which is a new hybrid kind of private, college tour, which also includes some private venues. So if you're not a student and you want to come see me live, it's a funny, one-man show, if you like. About all of the absurdities of modern life. We will be selling tickets to that in private venues, and we'll be visiting colleges again too. The tour is called Troll Academy, and the idea of it is I'm going to teach you to be just as dangerous to the left as I am, and that starts in September.